Shalom, family. How's everybody doing today? I'm your brother Daweed. This is my wife Hokma.
Shalom.
We want to welcome you back to another episode of the Go Lightly Perspective. Before we begin, family, we ask that you would take a second, like the video, get prepared to share because we're going to bring to you guys some really good information. We're going to be talking about relationship failure, more specifically, marriage failure. And we know that that is a hot topic. Most of our people do have a desire to be married, even though 50%, over half of our people, according to blackdemographics.com, have not been married. So what we want to do is to begin to try to highlight some things that may lead to divorce, but also, and if you're not married, you can adopt some of these things now. We'll get to it. I'm trying not to give too much in advance, but we're going to just highlight some of those things that will be beneficial to you. So stay tuned, family. You have something that you want to share? Quick little intro? All right, family. This episode of the Go Lightly Perspective is going to be brought to you by houseofdaweed.com. People have asked how they can support us or be a part of what we're doing. Those that don't know, we do have a jewelry company. So a lot of the things that we wear are on the website for purchase. So you can go to the website, houseofdaweed.com, and check us out there, family. But now that we got that out the way, let's get going. So I know that it has been some time since we recorded. It's probably been a little bit over a month.
Probably.
Yeah, easy. Life is so dynamic. We've had a lot of things that we're trying to do that kind of preempts us and keeps us from recording as frequently as we would like, but I think y'all gonna be happy with this one because we got something to say. So, family, in our culture, in what would be the Black experience, we have become so familiar and we embrace the probability and the possibility of our marriages failing. The statistics of marriage has gone down. I was looking at marriage.com. I was looking at divorce.com. And it said that divorce rates has decreased, which is a good thing, right? But that could be for a myriad of different reasons. A lot of it that they were saying was because millennials are foregoing getting married. They're waiting till much later to actually get married. So it's during that time of 25 to about 39 where most divorces occur. So they're kind of pushing it out to like, I'm gonna wait till I'm about 30.
I'm older.
Yeah, 31 before I even consider being married. And then a lot of people just are opting to just, what the old folks used to call it, just shacking up. They just resort to shacking. So that data cannot be captured, but I guess it is kind of a good thing that divorce rates are going down. We advocate for marriage, especially for our people. I think that is absolutely important. So we're talking about failure in marriage. And according to the statistics, we were able to gather a couple different reasons for failure of marriages. And one of the first things was lack of communication, which I've been doing a lot of, you not so much at this point of the video. So I'm going to ask that you would kind of speak to that, which is one of the number one reasons for divorce, and it kind of leads and ties into everything else. So go ahead.
So the top 3 reasons that marriage is failing, yes, you were doing such a great job talking. I just thought, I'd wait for you to finish.
You just like a viewer for a
moment.
Yes,
I was just viewing and taking it all in. Yeah. So the top 3 reasons relationships collapse or fail, specifically marriages, number 1 being lack of communication. and 65 to 67% of all marriages can attribute failure to some poor form of communication, lack of communication, miscommunication, excuse me, whatever. So, I think for me, communication is the key to everything. If we don't communicate, we can't express what's really going on, what we need to do, what we need to accomplish, what we're trying to accomplish, how we're going to accomplish it. So it's just really key that communication is strong. And I think oftentimes people don't communicate effectively due to some, childhood issue or something that maybe communication just wasn't strong in their own home, or they just shut down, and it could just be those two people not really playing off of each other well too. So, and it also can mean, at this point, I'm not communicating, I'm giving you the silent treatment, I don't have anything to say. And that leads to just a shutdown on the other side. And I think, it's no wonder that that's the number one reason, because it, like you mentioned, it ties into everything else. If we don't communicate about finances, we don't communicate about anything else. We're not communicating. So now I'm finding somebody to fill the void.
Right.
So now we have some infidelity on the table.
You just went to the big three right there.
Right. So I think that's what I'm saying, that the communication is like the launch pad for all the rest of it.
It is. That's a great point. And I just wanted to say this, that as men, we have to, in marriage specifically, you have the opportunity. I'm sorry, y'all, my glasses are filthy, as y'all can see. I may need to just take these off because they got a film on them. Black folks, we got butt on the skin and stay moisturized, and it be on our hands so we don't get ashy on camera. But evidently my glasses took part of that. As men, I encourage you to become more prolific in your speech. So we have the opportunity within marriage to practice what the Father did for us as a people. So it's really, really important that you enunciate, articulate, put up framework, put up borders, so that those that you serve will know what the expectations are, what you expect from them, so that they can assist you. And if you have not given them an articulated vision, and articulated expectations, some rules, some guidelines, things to go by, it leaves too many things up in the air. So men, I encourage you to don't leave your wife guessing. You don't want to allow that part. You leave room for creativity. You leave room for her to take what you've said and to grow it and to expand upon it. But get rid of the assumption, get rid of the presumption, and clearly enunciate what you want. And when a man does that, he becomes dangerous. He becomes powerful more than you ever could even imagine, just by being able to communicate effectively what it is that you want, what it is that you desire. And then at that point, you're able to fight against, not fight against, you're able to reduce the likelihood that you're being misunderstood, that you're being, things are being taken out of context, because I can enunciate exactly what I want within the context and have the vocabulary. And when I say vocabulary, it's not about, the big $5 SAT, GRE words. No, it's effective communication, because that's the point. Is I say something in a manner, tone that this person can receive. And even if I'm speaking a language that she understands, if my tone is off, if I'm too terse, if I'm too bitter, angry, condescending, sarcastic, I could be saying the exact same thing, but based on the tone that I'm using, it can make it difficult for you to receive. An example of that, I could say something like, babe, you do a good job. You're like, okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you do a good job. What does that mean?
Right.
What is
Right.
it? Yeah, you know you do. Yeah, you know you do a good job. Just the intonation,
Sarcasm.
the sarcasm completely changes the meaning of those things. So by increasing not only your vocabulary, but your the intelligence
The
of
delivery.
your delivery, thank you, you can improve the likelihood of getting a better outcome.
Mm-hmm.
You increase the likelihood of success just in your communication.
Right. And you don't want to leave the person making assumptions about what it
Mm-hmm.
is that you mean. And you made a good point about communicating in a way that's received. You wouldn't communicate to, a 3-year old on a in the way that you would communicate with an adult and expect for them to understand. So the language also has to be on par with whom you're communicating.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be actually sober in your assessment of this person's cognitive
Mm-hmm.
abilities to, understand what's being communicated. Because there's
Yeah.
no point in saying something if it just goes over my head. You can tell me 1,000 times that I am, whatever it is to you. But if I don't know what that is, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
just nodding, and
Yeah.
you're getting frustrated because I'm not living up to that,
Yes.
and I'm frustrated because I think I am, but totally afraid to say I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. And so
So,
that in and of itself means that there's lack of communication. There's some barriers there. It's important. I'm just going to take these off.
and then the other thing about that is that the frustration sets in because you're saying something to me. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm afraid to kind of tell you I don't know what you're talking about because you're talking to me like you think I should
Yeah.
understand. And now you're getting frustrated. You're starting to be critical because I'm
Yes.
not
Mm.
performing in the manner that I'm nodding to as if I understand when I
Yes.
really don't.
Yeah.
You're steadily trying to push forward instead of pausing to say, "Hey, you look like you might not understand what I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about. Let's take a step back because I've said this, x amount of times, and it's not changing."
And one thing that I do in that, which I've done with my sons, and even in leadership positions, I'll say something, and then I'll have them to
Repeat
repeat
it.
what I said in their own words. Like, don't just recite what I
Yeah,
said. I
reflect
need
that
for you
back.
to give it to me
Right.
in a way that we're clear about that
Right.
communication.
Show me your processing.
Show me your processing. Show me your level of understanding and mastery of that word. So that helps to reduce that miscommunication, and it also it builds confidence. So now I understand the way that your mind works.
Right.
So this is trial and error as a person goes through life. Our method of communication has changed over the years. Being that we've been together for quite some time, things change, things adjust, your needs change. You have grown in some amazing ways that invoked growth for me. Like, I can't get left behind. Like,
It should
wait
be
a minute.
that
So,
way.
like iron sharpens iron
Right.
in that way. So, and it's not, and I understand that scripture, it says, so doth a man sharpen his friend. And I get that. But I would say men, I don't like, okay, I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to say it. And I think that I'm at a point in my life where I'm just willing to say what I believe to be true. That's all. I only want to communicate what I believe to be true. And for me, I don't bond well, or I can't really connect with a woman that's unintelligent. I like to be able to have a certain level of conversation. It doesn't mean that, I need my equal. That's not what I'm saying. But there's always a level of comprehension and desire for just not necessarily highbrow conversations, but can our conversations range from not only child rearing to political concepts,
anything.
to philosophy, to religion to war? Can we talk about politics? Can we talk about the scripture? And I think that oftentimes we in the culture we try to peg everything just like to the scripture as if that's the only thing that we can really talk about, and it becomes not true. It really becomes a lie in that, okay, well, this is the only thing that I can talk about and this is my whole world. And I'm like, bruh,
it is.
I feel like there's a level of just masking and disingenuous conveyance of things. Like, bruh, we know that, okay, the scripture says, and we know that Hamashiach, Christ, he is our life. Absolutely. He is my life. But we live in this world and we ought to be able to, the scripture says, don't be ignorant of anything, whether small or great. So I say all of that to say that I appreciate being able to have deeper level conversations with my wife and with people that are around me. We probably not going, the conversation probably not going to go too far if you don't have a certain level of intellect. I said it.
It's just that
I said it.
I mean, and it's not to say that, I know what you mean.
And I hope that doesn't sound bad, but I can talk to anyone.
So it's not to say if you took the SAT, you needed a perfect score. No, it needs to be. You need to have a variety of topics in your pocket. You need to be well versed to the point that you can hold an adult conversation on a myriad of topics and actually not just parrot and repeat. You need to have some level of understanding. Yeah. Which then that demonstrates your, level of education or intelligence. It's not about how many years you went to. How do you process this information?
So let me say this. It's not just the information, but how do you feel about the information? Can you express that? So back to the whole,
and then
we
read
the scriptures,
Torah, right?
Yeah, we read the scripture and we'll tell people what the scripture says. But I know what the scripture says to
what does that mean
remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. But what is your relationship with that text? How do you relate to it and understand it and even feel about it?
Right.
Because how you feel about it is going to determine how you convey it. If you may be, what it says, but I'm a little bitter about it. I'm a little angry and frustrated about it. Therefore, when I convey it and communicate it, it's got an edge to it. It has a certain cutting to it versus it being healing, being something that people can grow from versus just, this is taking away. It's robbing. It's very judgmental and critical. So I just wanted to add that.
Right. And that's a good point, because I think that's part of the communication failure.
Yeah.
In marriage too, especially in, this walk, because the doctrinal things start to come in and you start to, like you said, it becomes less about reality and the lack of understanding about the intent. And then it's this, critical using it, wielding it as a sword to, cut instead of
a scalpel
to build up. I mean, not precise enough to be with a scalpel.
Yeah. But, everybody can't wield it like that.
No, but, and I think it's important to say that, the doctrine piece of it is less important than the application of what's written.
The true virtues that the Father wants
not
us
the virtue
to apply.
signaling.
No, not the virtue signaling. No, really having the fruit of the Spirit.
Right.
Really trying to walk in peace and not strive. Like the scripture says that the man of Yah should not strive, but operate in love and peace and patience and those different attributes. Those are the things that are going to draw people to you. Those are the things that's going to draw your family to you.
Your
versus
spouse.
you directing and commanding and barking, and those are the things that repel. So we want to be this synergistic galvanizing agent for the Most High. That's what we want, and you can become that by increasing your literacy, by reading more, and that will improve your ideas. You'll have the opportunity to improve your thoughts, the thoughts that you think. So
Can
that
I say something real quick?
oh, come on.
So no, it's okay to, and I think this is another issue when it comes down to communication, because you can't really communicate on a myriad of topics if you're not knowledgeable of them, even
Yeah.
other religions.
Yeah.
And I think, it's kind of shunned or looked down upon if someone is looking at a different religion, not to worship another god or another deity or anything like that, but it's just, I need to know what else is out here to kind of know what we, up against here. So it's not for me to try to change my perspective and lean toward that or anything, but just to have an understanding, a better understanding, that even further solidify the understanding of Torah.
Right.
So it's not, you can, an intelligent person can read anything and take the meat and throw
Yes.
away the scraps.
Yeah, and a person that's really centered in what they believe. Do you even know what you believe as it relates to the text, or is it just something that, well, it was given to me and I'm told to recite it? But, so when I read documents, when I read books, no matter what I'm reading, I am tuned in to the practices of Torah. I'm tuned in to the ways of our fathers. And we had a conversation about this, culturally, as it relates to academics. We don't argue with people about how the world began. We don't argue with people about what marriage is. We don't argue with people about what they
Anything.
are to do with their bodies.
We'll argue with people about anything.
Right, or with who. We don't argue because we're so firmly rooted in the cultural understanding that was given to us by our tribal deity. And that means the God of the Hebrews. He told us, he gave us diet, he gave us, marriage. He told us how the world began. We have our own cosmology. We already have those things. So we need not, we don't. So if we go back and we look at the text, when our fathers, when they journeyed through a lot of foreign land, the Hittites, the Moabites, all these different ites, and I know I'm deviating. I'm sorry. Let me bring it back. I don't want to go too far off topic, but I'm talking about communication. I do not want those that are connected to me to feel the need to try to interrogate others because of their belief. If they believe what they believe, that's absolutely fine with us.
Oh, okay, yes.
We are going in a certain direction. We are fully bought in and sold out to the Most High. So I don't need to interrogate others nor try to evangelize others. If there's someone that's curious, that wants to know the way of the Most High, who was the God of Israel, then I can enunciate and share those things without any burden of them trying to convert. So back to what I was saying. I'm going to bring it back. I got off track. Bring it back. Yeah. Lack of communications builds barriers. It builds walls in relationships. So men, make sure that you tear down those walls. Sometimes we compartmentalize. Tear down those walls so that she can give you the help that you need. She may not like the truth that you're sharing with her, but she will respect you for telling her what it is. Tell her. Women can handle it. Tell them what it is, and she will respect you because you did tell her. And for men, that is the oxygen of a relationship. We need that respect. So just by you telling her, reducing the what is it, the lack of communication, you'll gain that woman's respect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And we
Good.
women feed off of the men too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not the men, but I feed off my husband.
Yeah, thank you.
I was speaking to a number of different women.
Yeah.
But as wives, we kind of feed off of the husband's energy,
Mm-hmm.
his confidence, and how he guides the family. That's a form of communication as well as a nonverbal.
Mm-hmm.
But just the way he presents, that's communication. The way he speaks, that's how he's received by other people. All of that is important to me as a wife.
Yeah.
So, in terms of, how does that impact me? Watching him, be accepted and revered by others and admired and just the way that he conducts business and can go out and, communicate with anyone. I'm very, proud of that. So I'm more apt to do the things that are required of me in the home because I want to really honor him for the man that he is. So that's, the unspoken communication is through the things that I do to show how thankful
Mm-hmm.
I am and how much honor I give to you. So,
Thank you.
and I think that that's another part of the communication that goes missed because we think everything is verbal and it's not.
No.
And, as far as the wife goes, silent treatment, withholding
Mm-hmm.
intimacy, or being overly dramatic when something is said that we may not want to hear,
Mm-hmm.
or crying inconsolably anytime something difficult comes up. All those are very, very strong forms of communication. You're really not saying anything, but you're signaling to your husband, I can't handle what you have to tell me.
Yeah.
I'm going to break down every time you tell me something. So then when he starts to pull back because trying to help you have an easier way to go, he's not going to burden you with things that you can't handle. Now you think he's withholding information.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's, being sneaky. He's not telling me things. Well, you can't handle it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't handle it. So don't expect, a whole lot when you can't even handle the,
Right. Right. And
That's your
women,
aim.
huh?
This is your aim.
Yeah. Okay. And we just want to make sure that we're mindful of that we're not allowing ourselves to be manipulated.
Right.
But I want to segue into how that lack of communication. Maybe you haven't communicated your debts
Right.
in a
Oh my
relationship.
gosh.
You haven't communicated
At the beginning.
at the beginning. You haven't communicated your overall goal financially. You could be putting, on the good side, you could be putting half your paycheck in your 401k, and you never told that person. So
Right.
y'all really struggling, and you hoarding this
You
money.
told me you made.
Right.
I do, but I don't bring but half of it
I
home.
won't bring half of it home. Right. So a lot of times you have to have these hard conversations. If you have these hard conversations at the beginning, I was talking to some brothers just about selecting a wife, some of those processes that those checklists that a man has to go through. And it's not easy out here, not in the culture, not in the
What
streets.
checklist that men have to go through? The checklist that women have for them, or
Women have
women have ridiculous,
exhaustive.
Some of the craziest things I
Yeah.
have seen, and some of
It's
these.
delusional.
Oh my goodness! I
It's
went
delusional.
just join some of these groups on Facebook just to see the foolery.
Mm.
They're in there supposedly, righteous Hebrew singles,
Oh, really?
and they're got their same worldly checklist, and it's just funny to me.
That's why, unless you really are converted and you have someone that can guide you through a thorough and complete brainwashing,
Yeah,
you have to release the mindset this Western mindset. Just because you have your identity does not mean that you no longer have that Western mindset. And just, a couple Facebook posts or a very cursory conversation, shallow. I mean, right here on the surface, it will reveal the mindset of that person, that this is where they are. But so this is the mind that has led to over 40 to 50% of all marriages ending in divorce. This Western mindset. In terms of like nations, America is number 6 on the list of divorces, according to the statistics. America is 6 on the list. Other is followed by like Turkey, Hungary, Chechnya, Czechoslovakia, some of those other smaller countries. But as far as like, first world countries, America is maybe like number 1 on the list. So I said all that to say this. If you have that American mindset and you're approaching marriage the way that they have told you to, the way that the society has told you to, the way that your environment has told you to, the likelihood of you ending up in a divorce not because you're doing the things that are on a list is very high.
Right.
You increase the probability factor of that. So, man, we gotta get rid of that Western thought, man. It is corrosive. It is corrupting.
Yeah.
I would say. But then what would you say to someone that says, well, that's all we know? That's all I know is a Western mindset. What you mean get rid of my mind? How can I think anything else than this?
I mean, it would depend. My response to them would depend on where they are in life. First of all, if you have a history of multiple failed relationships, I would suggest that you let that insanity go because you're doing the same thing expecting a different outcome.
But what if it was just because, they didn't know how to appreciate that person? So they just need to they need to find
appreciated?
that those people couldn't handle them. So they looking for the right man that can handle them as they are.
Why do you want to be handled? I mean, why do you need somebody to handle you? Like, the men don't want to handle you.
You handle a dog. You handle a snake.
Handle you?
Yeah. Well, no. You need to be handled with care.
Oh, is that what it
is?
That's
what it is.
We have some clowns out here, right? So I think, you said a lot, but the question that remains is we talked about a little bit, like who failed who?
Yeah.
Whose fault is it when the relationship ends? Like, is it, and there's a lot of finger pointing.
Yes.
A lot of blaming and not a whole lot of accountability. And blaming and accountability can't exist together.
Yes.
Because when something fails, there's, especially a marriage, unless it's some extreme case of like some domestic violence where somebody's just completely, off the deep end, I would think that there's dual culpability.
Yes. Everyone had a part to play.
And unless you're going to really assess and look at it honestly, you will always blame someone else. And that's why the series of failures continue.
They rack up.
And people have this inability to look at the common denominator, the common factor. It's me.
Yes.
If I've had 5 marriages and all 5 have failed, I need to look at myself.
It's not uncommon for people to have 2 or more marriages, and once it gets to that third marriage, it ends in divorce like 65% of the time. You become less and less malleable, and you become less and less agreeable. Agreeable people tend to stay in relationships a little bit longer, but usually younger people are more agreeable. The older you get, the less agreeable you become. So it makes it a little more difficult for you to for a woman to become a part of a man's agenda, to really support him when like all throughout your 40s and your 50s, it's been all about you. And now you realizing, dang, maybe I drank the Kool-Aid and the things that I thought were valuable are no longer valuable. So now I really do want a lasting relationship. But let me say this. This thought just hit me that, as I'm maturing, you're dealing with a group of women in their 50s, late 40s, 50s, 60s, that are still trying to look like they're in their 40s, or they're trying to look like they're in their 30s, still dressing the same.
Trying to compete with these.
But these are women who grew up listening to Two Live Crew. These are women that grew up listening to Atlanta, Atlanta Booty Shake. Like when it first came out, Rex in Effect. This is that generation. You understand? Like this is who they are, and I began to understand it. Like they bought into the whole Terry Morrison. Who was the black author that wrote Waiting to Exhale? That
was her.
Toni Morrison. They bought into that empowerment movement for black women.
McMillan.
I thought it was Meg. I thought it was
Toni
Max.
Morrison.
Toni Morrison.
Bluest Eye.
Okay, Terry McMillan. Thank you. They bought into that, and they bought into like the sexual liberation, which really came from the 60s and the 70s, but it just really blew up. And so now we're seeing the result of this experimentation. And I just want to say, I believe that it's a failed experiment. Why? We look at the numbers of marriages, and those marriages directly correlate to being able to build family wealth. The average, like the average savings of a black family is roughly like $2,000. So you cannot build wealth as an individual.
You think that's average? I think that's above average.
It may be, well, in some states, I think it's like, or some cities like Baltimore, it was less than $100, like their net worth. Like once you subtract the cars and you subtract the debt, that their medium net worth is less than $200.
Viewers, I apologize. My husband and I, this is just the way we talk. We go all over the place. We've deviated far from.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
That's just the way we talk.
And we said it'd be 30 minutes. I'm sorry.
Stay with us.
But when
please.
you see we see the way that things like interconnect when we're talking about marriage
it's
and
hard
singleness.
to parse it out. It's hard because it all is intermingled and all overlaps, and they all impact.
It's a quilt.
Right. You can't. It's a tapestry. It's woven.
A tapestry, yes.
It's woven. And the threads to just bind it all together. But it's difficult to, separate it. So it's understandable that we have these conversations that kind of deviate from the initial topic.
It's an expansion of thought. So we talked about.
But you said, wait, I wanted to comment on the Two Live Crew women, and because that's a form of communication too. So they were communicating that they were available. They communicate, I'm available.
And they're still available.
And they're still available while married, because some men wanted these women who they thought were trophies or who emulated those images from. They grew up in that same era, and they wanted Diane. What was her name?
Darlene.
On the album cover. They wanted to be with her.
You were something else.
So it's kind of like that's who they thought, they were marrying, but they didn't understand that she really thinks she is Darlene. So you're not going to get her to change. And the communication that she's putting out to the world is that she's available.
Still available. Even though
and that she's disrespectful of her covering. And that she's not covered. I mean, so not only physically is she not covered, she's not covered spiritually either. So, of course, the marriages are going to fail. And that was even something that just popped up in my mind as you were talking. But, all these types of forms of communication can degrade the marriage very
Yes.
rapidly and really cause it to implode.
Because you know that woman is saying that I don't belong to you. Other cultures, their women acknowledge that they belong to them. I am his.
Yeah.
We belong to this group of man. These group of men. Black women, our women, the Hebrew woman, does not feel like she belongs to that man. That man can necessarily tell her what to do, can guide her, can direct her. There are some, however, by and large, that number is dwindling by the moment. They look at marriage as oppressive. This is now the new language. So I don't. I'm trying to bring it back on course because we talked about lack of communication. We talk about some financial goals, how financial conflicts where sometimes I would tell men, we had a great class about taking our wives out the box for at the men's meeting, taking our wives out of the box by empowering them. Some men, they put their wife in a box and they don't allow them to even bring anything financially substantive to the relationship because they want to keep them in a certain position. Maybe it's their own insecurity. They disallow them from really and truly being what Proverbs 31 discussed was a virtuous woman. You're keeping her from being that because that virtuous woman was up early in the morning, feeding her family, going out to her garden. She was selling wares and she was bringing business and commerce back to her husband.
And he was known because of her good works.
He was known because of her good works. Hallelujah. So,
Yes,
I believe in allowing, my wife to, baby, you're excellent. I know that you have my mind and my best interest. So you're authorized to operate in whatever area you need to operate in. And it's different than someone else that, maybe your wife doesn't really have your mind, your best interest, nor your legacy at heart. I'll talk about how my wife is the curator of my legacy. She's very, very concerned with that. Oftentimes, even more so than me, where I'm moving forward and maybe, not thinking about causatively the consequences of certain things. So it's good to have, but that's only come because I've increased my ability to communicate effectively.
Yeah.
The last reason for
Wait, before you go on.
Okay.
So the finance piece that you talked about, the communication about and straightforward, forthright communication about
Say
what
with your chest.
finances look like individually before becoming one. Because the worst thing ever is to communicate that. What are you laughing at?
I just thought of someone who got hoodwinked. I'm sorry. Please keep going.
But the worst thing ever is to come together and still operate separately because it's my money.
Yeah.
But it's never that energy when it's your debt.
Yeah.
So it's our debt, but it's
so
my
I can
money.
keep my money. Yeah.
Right. So it doesn't work that way. If you're not able to absorb all of it and you're not honest about it, then, why would anybody be respectful of that? Especially when they find out later and they feel that they may have made a different choice or a different decision based on the information. It's almost like the informed consent.
Yeah.
I can't consent to something that I don't know. Right. So, that's lawsuit. Yeah. But
people try to hide, and so I tell women, you want to be on the lookout. You want to be keenly aware of men that they want to take you out, they want to wine you, they want to dine you, they want to take you to all these expensive restaurants, and they're really spending their livelihood trying to impress you. They may have the car, but the car is not an indicator of wealth. They may have the rings and the jewelry, but that is not an indicator of wealth. Me, I wear these things because hey,
You like them.
I like them, and it's my company, so I can do it. I'm advertising. Shout out to House of Dawid. But
Once again.
please do not be sucked into these physical expressions of what wealth could be,
Right.
and assume that, okay, well, he has money, he's balling. Not saying that that should be the reason why you marry someone, or you should not marry
let's
someone,
be
but
real.
let's not be gullible, because women are hypergamous.
Right.
They want to marry someone that can almost take care of them.
But that doesn't mean, so the part about the hypergamy that's so annoying to me is that, okay, he can take care of me, but I can help and we can be taken care of better
Yeah.
with my contribution.
Yes.
So to each his own. However you run your house is how you run your house.
Yeah.
However, I'm not down with the hypergamy thing. I actually look at people kind of with disgust when women really approach someone who's been working their whole life to accomplish something, and then you think that you are entitled to his stuff.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of foolishness is that?
It's absurd, but that's what they're being taught.
They are being taught that. And then wait, one more point.
Go ahead.
I'm on a little box here.
Yeah, go for it.
So, if even when they start, they want to have babies, but it's not for his legacy. The babies ain't have anything to do with this man's legacy, because you don't care about him. It's his stuff you care about. So the babies are just a byproduct of your relationship with him. You don't look at it as a direct
Connection to him.
lineage, to him. You're looking at it as a direct connection to your bank account.
Yes.
Because of the hypergamy that you have had in your mind the whole time.
Right.
So that's also a form of communication. I'm going to make it relevant, but I had to make it.
You did good, because they look at it as this child is a paycheck.
Yes.
This child can secure me a certain amount of money for 18 years, can secure my lifestyle for 18 years. And hey,
one of your kids got you for 18 years.
And on the 18th birthday, found out it wasn't his. So, these type of things, these financial conversations, because we don't, if we can't communicate effectively, she doesn't know who I am.
Right.
I don't know who she is. And that causes us to have trust issues. I can't trust someone that I do not know. I can't even be intimate with you if there is not a knowing, a sharing, an exchange of ideas, this transparency of thought and action, histories. We need to have that in order to have true chemistry and true intimacy. And when that doesn't happen, oftentimes, this is where you have one of that third thing, and that is infidelity. Because oftentimes, when it comes to cheating, most times it is the man that has crept out of the relationship. 80% of the time, it's 80-20.
80-20 rule.
Okay, you want to
the Pareto principle.
Okay.
80% of the, let me get it right. 20% of the problem, 20% of the issue causes 80% of the problem.
Yeah.
Or you focus on it so much that it's bigger, and it's really a very small percentage of
what's really
the whole picture.
Yeah.
So it bothers you so much that you focus on it, you've made it huge.
Yeah.
So now you're out trying to fill that void, and you get way more than you bargained for.
Yeah.
Instead of just really communicating about the issue. And the communication is bi-directional. You have to be able to receive what's being said. That's a part of the communication process. It's not just somebody talking at the side of your head. It's you processing it.
You receiving it and then wanting to change.
I
hear what this person has said. They've conveyed some things to me that may have been troubling. That may have bothered me at my core, but because I want to change and be what this person needs for me to be, I'm willing to undergo that. And if I can't do it by myself, then I'm going to contract and contact someone that can better assist me with becoming said thing,
Right.
so that I don't have to hide, lie, mask, and tip out the door and do those type of things. No, I'm going to communicate effectively.
And then a lot of times it's because you don't even know who you're dealing with from the beginning.
Maybe that's why that's a symptom of this rush culture. We're rushing toward things. We're trying
Everybody's
to make
in a
things
hurry.
to make things occur very, very quickly without going through a very thorough evaluation phase. And I don't think that evaluation should solely be with one individual, versus you should, almost have a third party to evaluate these people, someone that knows you, and see, well, this may or may not be a good fit, baby. So you may, before you get, we just gonna tell the truth. Before you start getting all sexually involved, because everybody ain't there yet. We gonna be honest. Everybody ain't there yet. But before you get all sexually involved, you need to have someone else outside of you put eyes on this person and see if maybe this is gonna work.
And sometimes, women will see things that are complete red flags, and because of their desperation and their desire to be in a relationship, they'll let it go, like ignore it. And then when it blows up and it's this huge problem, now, he's acting like a stalker because he's been a stalker the whole time. Now he's all of a sudden he's a stalker. He's been one.
That man been looking at
Oh,
your
I
window.
thought he just loved me too much.
Yeah.
What they call it, love bombing.
Oh, I've never heard that
love
term.
bombing is So
bombs blow up. I don't want no.
exactly,
I don't want bombs.
people do that. They try to mimic similarities, or just if it's too good to be true, kind of thing. Like, oh, really? You like that? I like that
And
too.
all they're doing is taking in you. They're listening. They're great listeners. You like basketball? Yeah, I like basketball. You into the word? Come on. What's your favorite scripture?
Exactly. When they know they heard you say it already, So
That's my favorite scripture too.
People are simple.
You a Hebrew?
Right.
Shalom. Shalom, brother.
I keep it Kodesh.
I keep it Kodesh and fresh. All right, y'all. Any other closing remarks? We said this wasn't going to be a long video.
No, and we kind of
But we covered some of the things that's going to help you guys as it relates to marriage. Improve your communication. Men, I'm encouraging you. I'm going to continue to encourage you. Improve your communication. Improve your literacy. Improve your vocabulary. Improve your emotional intelligence. Being able to outweight your wife when it comes to things. Not being rushed at anything. Wait. It is a very inspiring masculine principle that you can begin to exhibit, and it will change the way that so many people are dealing with you and interacting with you more, contextually. We're talking about your wife and your children. So have that emotional intelligence. Learn to wait, learn to be patient. Don't be critical in your communication. I'm telling you, man, you do these things, you will improve the likelihood of success within your marriage.
You finished?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So my closing remarks are going to go back to the blame versus accountability. Be accountable. Stop blaming.
I'm sorry, you say you're going back to, I don't remember us
You don't
covering
remember?
this.
We did. You weren't listening to me. Communication flaw. He was not listening
You
to
said,
me.
okay, I'm sorry.
I did. I said blame versus accountability.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm
my
with you.
goodness.
I thought you was just gonna break out with some new notes
No,
on me real quick and
no,
like
I
drop
just
the
went
mic.
back. No, so it's the whole communication thing. Like, you can't look at something and say it failed and it was his fault.
Right.
It's our fault.
Yeah.
Because we play off of each other. That's just how it is in any relationship that's meaningful. You should feed off of each other.
Yes.
It's bidirectional. And, when you blame so much, the problem becomes the problem is that you're saying I can't change until he changes or until she changes. It releases you from accountability, but it places you in a position of a victim.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to be victimized or feel like a victim, because then there's an inaction waiting for someone else to do something. So accountability is so important. Look at yourself. What could you have done better? What could you improve on? And get feedback from someone who actually knows you,
Yes.
like my husband said, not just any random person. And your list of people who you get feedback from should be really short, because it really should be people who know you intimately and have your best interest at heart. That's a heck of a combo.
Yes.
But, so that's about all I have to say in my closing, is that it's important to make sure that you're assessing the situation from both sides and be empathetic.
Oh, yeah.
And see, how would I feel if someone was treating me the way that I'm treating my husband,
Yeah.
and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. That's very good. I want to close with a scripture, family. Deuteronomy 32. This is our worldview. Deuteronomy 32 and verse 2. You know what? I'm gonna start it. I'm gonna read 1 through 4. Give ear, O ye heavens, and I will speak, and hear, O earth, the words of my mouth. My doctrine shall drop as the rain, my speech shall distill as the dew, as the small rain upon the tender herb, and as the showers upon the grass. Because I will publish the name of Yahuwah. Ascribe ye greatness unto our Elohim. He is the rock. His work is perfect. For all his ways are judgment, a Elohim of truth and without iniquity, just and right is he.
Hallelujah.
We believe that his ways are perfect. That's why we advocate for doing things his ways. We've only tried to share what we've come to accept and believe are the truth or is the truth, and then convey that to you in a way where we hope was entertaining, that was compelling, and came from a place where we're resolved that this is the way for us. We'll be married 20 years in a couple months, and I thank the Father every day for that. So y'all, if you would take a second, please stay tuned. We will come back around for part 2.
Yes.
Our intent is to do a 3-part series. We just did part 1 of
We did part 1.4 because we incorporated
Right.
some of those other elements into
we
it.
did as we relate to failure, specifically in marriage, and then we're going to go to our personal lives, and then we'll go to as it relates to some of our spiritual beliefs, whether they have failed us because we don't have right centering and centeredness in them. Sometimes we have a God in our mind, and it is not the God of the Bible. So
Right.
love y'all, family. Shalom and blessings be upon you. May you never lack a man to stand before the Most High, which means you're going to produce seed and you're going to raise them up after the perfect way of the Most High Yah. Shalom, shalom.